In the year 2472, far beyond the edges of known space, the survey vessel, Odyssey Dawn, drifted through a quiet stretch of the galaxy. Its mission was simple: map forgotten systems, log anomalies, and send data back to the interstellar Concord. Most days were dull, endless scans of empty stars and silent rocks. But today was different. Leo Carter sat hunched over his console in the ship's archive bay, eyes tired from hours of scrolling through old files. He was young for a xenolinguist, only 28, with messy brown hair and a habit of chewing on his stylus when deep in thought. His job was to decode ancient signals in lost languages, but lately there hadn't been much to decode. Just static and silence. Then he found it. Buried in a corrupted data packet from a salvage drone recovered near the ruins of Proxima Station was a digital scan of an old star chart. Not just old, ancient, pre-collapse. From before the solar wars, before humanity scattered across the stars like seeds in a storm. The chart was hand-drawn in style, though digitized long ago with faded ink and strange symbols along its edges. At the bottom in rough looping script were the words, "Here be monsters." Leo frowned. That phrase was common in Earth's medieval maps, used to mark unexplored or dangerous regions. But this wasn't a sea chart. It was a star map. And the coordinates it pointed to made no sense. According to modern astrogation logs, that sector was empty. No star, no planet, not even a dust cloud worth noting. Just void and curious, Leo ran a cross-reference. The chart's origin was listed as Last Archive of Luna, dated 2148, just before the Great Silence, when all contact with Earth and its colonies suddenly stopped. No one knew why. Some said war. Others whispered of a plague or a failed experiment. Whatever happened, Earth vanished from history, becoming more myth than memory. Leo couldn't shake the feeling that this chart mattered. He brought it to Captain Elena Ruiz the next morning. She was in her late 40s, sharp-eyed and steady, with a voice that never rose above calm even in emergencies. She listened as Leo explained his find, her fingers tapping lightly on the arm of her chair. "You want me to divert course to a dead zone based on a 300-year-old doodle?" she asked, one eyebrow raised. "It's not a doodle," Leo said quickly. "It's precise. The symbols match early Sol System navigation glyphs. And the coordinates, they're exact. Someone went to great trouble to mark that spot." Elena studied him for a long moment. She knew Leo wasn't reckless. He was thorough, quiet, the kind of scientist who double-checked his coffee order. If he believed something was there, it was worth a look. "Fine," she said at last. "We'll take a detour. But only 48 hours. If we find nothing, we move on." 2 days later, the Odyssey Dawn dropped out of warp near the marked coordinates. The bridge fell silent as the main view screen flickered to life. At first there was nothing, just blackness and distant stars. Then the long-range sensors beeped. "Captain," said Ensign Kyle Briggs from the science station, his voice tight with disbelief. "There's a planet," Elena stood. "Impossible. That sector's been scanned a dozen times." "Not like this," Kyle replied, fingers flying over his console. "It's hidden behind a phased energy field. Old tech, but sophisticated. And the orbital debris, it's arranged like a shield. Natural decay wouldn't do that." Leo's heart pounded. He rushed to the sensor display. The readings confirmed it. A terrestrial world, oxygen-rich atmosphere, liquid water signatures, and one unmistakable feature: continental shapes that matched old Earth geography. North America, Eurasia, Africa. "It's Earth," Leo whispered. The crew stared at the screen in stunned silence. Earth wasn't supposed to exist. After the collapse, every record said the planet had been rendered uninhabitable, burned by orbital strikes, poisoned by nanotech plagues, or swallowed by some self-replicating disaster. No ship had returned from Sol in over 3 centuries. The system was quarantined by conquered law, marked as a tomb, yet here it was, alive, breathing. Elena ordered a full diagnostic sweep. The results were even stranger. The stealth field surrounding Earth wasn't just hiding it. It was actively repelling scans, distorting light and emitting low-frequency pulses that mimicked cosmic background noise. Whoever built it didn't just want to hide, they wanted to be forgotten. "We should report this," said Nate Brooks, the ship's biologist, joining them on the bridge. He was tall, with a gentle voice and a habit of speaking slowly, as if weighing each word. "The Conquered needs to know Earth survived, and risk a fleet showing up? Leo countered. What if they see this as a resource? Or a threat? We don't know what's down there or who's protecting it. Elena nodded slowly. Leo's right. We go in quiet. One shuttle. Minimal footprint. Leo, Nate, you're with me. We land, take samples, observe, and leave within 6 hours. No contact unless absolutely necessary. The shuttle Kestrel detached from the Odyssey Dawn, an hour later, slipping through a narrow gap in the debris field. As they descended, Earth filled the viewport. Not the dead rock they expected, but a world bursting with green and blue. Clouds swirled over vast forests. Rivers cut through valleys untouched by cities. There were no lights at night, no signals, no signs of industry. Just nature, reclaiming everything. They touched down in a clearing near what old maps called the Pacific Northwest. The air outside was cool and clean, scented with pine and damp earth. Birds, real birds, called from the trees. Nate knelt, pressing a hand to the soil. It's fertile, rich, and look. He pointed to a patch of moss glowing faintly blue in the shade. Bioluminescent. Not in any known Earth species. Leo walked a few paces, scanning the horizon. In the distance, the skeleton of a highway rose from the undergrowth, twisted and rusted but still recognizable. A satellite dish lay half buried in ferns. Human. Undeniably human. But there were no bones. No graves, no wreckage of war. Just silence. As the sun dipped below the trees, something shifted in the forest. A rustle, not wind. Too rhythmic. Leo turned slowly. Between the trunks, figures stood watching. Tall, lean, their skin faintly shimmering in the twilight. They wore simple woven clothes, and their eyes reflected the last light like cats. They carried no weapons. They didn't speak. They simply watched. Elena raised a hand, signaling the others not to move. The figures didn't advance. They didn't flee, they just observed. Leo's breath caught. The chart had said, "Here be monsters." But these weren't monsters. They looked almost human. Too human. And for the first time in centuries, Earth had seen visitors. The forest held its breath. Leo stood frozen, eyes locked on the silent figures among the trees. They were tall, with smooth features and eyes that seemed to hold the deep green of the woods themselves. Their skin had a faint sheen like morning dew on leaves, and their movements were so quiet they barely bent the ferns beneath their feet. Elena kept her hand raised, a silent order to stay still. Nate slowly lowered his scanner, not wanting to startle them. Minutes passed. No one moved. Then one of the figures stepped forward. A woman with silver-streaked hair tied back in a simple braid. She wore a tunic made of woven plant fibers dyed in soft browns and greens. Around her neck hung a pendant shaped like a coiled serpent eating its own tail. She stopped a few yards away and spoke, her voice low and clear. "You are not supposed to be here." Her words were in standard Concord English, but with an old rhythm, like a song half-remembered. Leo exchanged a quick glance with Elena. They hadn't expected speech, certainly not in a language they understood. "We didn't mean to intrude," Elena said carefully. "We saw the old chart. We only wanted to see if Earth still lived." The woman studied them, her gaze sharp but not unkind. "Earth lives," she said, "but it does not welcome strangers." She turned and gestured for them to follow. After a moment's hesitation, Elena nodded. They walked in single file behind her, the other figures melting back into the trees like shadows. The path wound through towering pines and over mossy stones, leading deeper into the forest. Strange plants glowed softly along the trail. Some pulsed with light, others hummed when touched by the breeze. Nate kept his hands in his pockets, eyes wide with wonder. They reached a clearing where low, dome-shaped buildings blended into the earth, covered in living vines and flowering moss. Smoke curled gently from stone chimneys. People moved quietly, tending gardens, weaving baskets, mending tools. All wore similar clothes, all moved with the same calm grace. Children played near a stream, laughing in soft voices. It felt peaceful, safe, but also guarded. The woman led them to a central structure built around an ancient oak tree, its branches stretching over the roof like a living canopy. Inside, the air smelled of herbs and warm clay. She offered them water in wooden cups. It tasted sweet with a hint of something floral. "My name is Mara," she said, sitting on a woven mat. "I am one of the keepers." "Keepers of what?" Leo asked. "Of Earth," she replied simply. "Of memory. Of balance." She explained that after the last war, the one that shattered the old world. Those who remained on Earth made a choice. They would not flee to the stars again. They would not build weapons or cities that scraped the sky. Instead, they would heal the planet, using the last of their old science to guide evolution, not control it. Over generations, they changed. Their bodies adapted to the land. Their minds learned to listen to the wind, the soil, the pulse of life around them. They became something new, but still human. What happened to everyone else? Nate asked gently. Mara's expression darkened. Gone, some left before the end. Others did not survive the silence. The ones who stayed chose the veil, the shield that hides us. We do not speak to the stars. The stars brought fire. We do not wish to burn again. Leo thought of the chart. The map said, "Here be monsters," but there are no monsters here. Mara smiled faintly. The monsters were not on Earth. They were the ones who left: greed, war, the hunger to own everything. That is the monster your ancestors carried into the dark. Elena shifted. We're not like that. The Concord protects worlds. We help them thrive. Do you? Mara asked, her eyes steady. Or do you bring your laws, your trade, your fleets? Even kindness can be a cage. Before anyone could answer, a young man entered the hut. He was lean and quick-eyed, with restless energy. He glanced at the visitors with open curiosity. This is Jax, Mara said. He tends the memory grove. Jax bowed slightly. You came from the sky, he said, more statement than question. Do you know the old songs? Leo shook his head. Most were lost in the collapse. Jax's face fell, but only for a moment. Then I will show you something. With Mara's silent permission, Jax led them outside and down a narrow path lined with glowing mushrooms. They arrived at a small clearing where stone tablets stood in a circle, covered in carvings. In the center sat a smooth black device, half buried in roots. Jax knelt and brushed away the dirt. The device flickered to life, projecting a soft blue light into the air. A hologram appeared. A family. A man, a woman, and a small girl smiling in front of a house with a red door. The girl held a stuffed bear. The image wavered, then played a sound, laughter. Real, warm, human laughter. This was saved from the last city, Jax said quietly. Before the veil, my great-grandmother recorded it. She said, remember us not for how we died, but how we loved. Leo felt a lump in his throat. This wasn't ruin. This was remembrance. As dusk settled, Mara allowed them to walk the edge of the settlement under watchful eyes. They saw no weapons, no machines beyond simple tools, but they saw something else, harmony. Crops grew in spirals that followed the sun's path. Bees hummed in hives shaped like flowers. Even the wind seemed to move with purpose. Later, back at the shuttle, Elena radioed the Odyssey Dawn. We've made contact. Earth is alive, and it's different. Different how? Came the reply. Better, Nate said softly, or at least trying to be. But as they prepared to return to the ship, Leo noticed something. In the distance, beyond the tree line, another group of figures watched, not with curiosity, but with cold suspicion. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with scars on his arms, met Leo's gaze and did not look away. Jack saw it too. He pulled Leo aside. That's Kale, he whispered. He leads the Watchers. He believes all off-worlders are threats. If he thinks you'll return with more, he won't let you leave. Leo's stomach tightened. The peace here was fragile, and they had just cracked it. As the shuttle lifted off, Earth shrinking below, Leo looked down at the glowing forests and hidden valleys. The chart had warned of monsters, but the real danger wasn't down there. It was what they might bring back with them. Hope, yes, but also the old hunger. And Earth, after all this time, might not survive a second fall. Back aboard the Odyssey Dawn, silence hung thick in the air. The crew gathered in the mess hall, not eating, just sitting. Leo paced near the viewport, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the blue-green curve of Earth below. Elena stood by the comms panel, arms folded, jaw tight. Nate leaned against the wall, fiddling with a data chip he'd collected from the forest floor, a small piece of biotech that pulsed faintly in his palm. What do we do? Asked Kyle, the young ensign, breaking the quiet. We can't just leave. This changes everything. Or it changes nothing, Elena replied. Mara made it clear they don't want us. They built a life without the stars. Who are we to force our way in? But they're human, Leo said, turning. Not aliens. Not ghosts. They're us. The last of Earth. If we walk away, we're saying their story doesn't matter. Nate nodded slowly. And that chip? It's alive. Not like a machine. It breathes. It heals itself. If the Conquered knew about this kind of bioengineering, they'd send scientists, Elena cut in, then diplomats, then security. And before you know it, Earth becomes a research site or a tourist stop, or worse, a target. You saw Kale's face. He's ready to fight. And if he thinks we'll come back with ships, he might try to bring down our shuttle next time. Leo sat down, running a hand through his hair. Then we don't tell anyone. Not yet, we learn more. We earn their trust. Elena looked at him. You want to go back down? I have to, Leo said. Jax gave me a look before we left, like he wanted to say more but couldn't. There's something he's not allowed to share. Maybe it's the key to understanding why they really hid. After a long pause, Elena sighed. One more trip. 12 hours. No gear, no weapons, no recording devices. Just you and me. If Kale or his group shows up, we leave immediately. The next morning they returned in the shuttle, landing in the same clearing. This time only Mara and Jax waited for them. No guards, no watchers, but the air felt heavier, tense. You came back, Mara said, her voice calm but guarded. We want to understand, Elena said. Not to take, not to change, just to listen. Mara studied them, then nodded. Follow. She led them deep into the woods, past the settlement, to a place where the trees grew in perfect circles around a sunken stone platform. Moss-covered ancient carvings, circuits, equations, star maps. At the center stood a tall monolith, cracked but still humming with a low vibration. This is the Heartstone, Mara said. It powers the Veil. It also holds the last memories of the old world. Jack stepped forward. The Veil wasn't just to hide, he said, glancing at Mara for permission. She gave a small nod. It was to protect the rest of you. Leo frowned. Protect us from what? From Earth, Mara said quietly. After the collapse, the planet began to heal, but not in ways your ancestors expected. The forests grew smarter. The oceans learned to cleanse themselves. Life adapted. Aggressively. Animals changed. Plants developed defenses. The air itself could reject foreign bodies. Earth became dangerous to those who didn't belong. She looked at them. Your people left because they broke the world. But Earth didn't stay broken. It fought back. And it won. We are not the masters here. We are guests. We live by its rules. That is why we do not leave. Our bodies are tuned to this world. Yours are not. Stay too long and the land will reject you. Sickness, fever, even death. Nate's eyes widened. That's why there were no bodies in the ruins. The planet cleaned itself, Mara nodded. The monsters on your chart were not beasts. They were the consequences of forgetting how to live with the Earth. Your ancestors called it a monster because it would not obey them. Leo felt a chill. The real horror wasn't invasion or war. It was nature refusing to be tamed. Jack stepped closer. But we've watched the stars, he said, voice low. We hear your signals sometimes, faint and far. Songs of peace, stories of colonies growing food on Mars, cleaning oceans on Titan. Maybe you've changed too. Mara's expression softened, but only slightly. Hope is dangerous, Jax. It makes you reach for things that will burn you. Later, while Mara walked with Elena to discuss boundaries and time limits, Jax pulled Leo aside near a stream. He handed him a small smooth stone etched with symbols. This is a key, Jax whispered. It opens the archive vault beneath the old observatory in the mountains. There are records there about the Veil, about the silence, about why Earth truly fell quiet. Mara won't let outsiders see it, but I think you should. Why me? Leo asked. Because you looked at the hologram and cried, Jack said simply. You remembered what we are. That night, as the twin moons rose, Leo and Elena prepared to leave again. But before they boarded the shuttle, Kale appeared at the tree line with 3 others. They carried long staffs tipped with glowing crystals, not weapons but tools that hummed with energy. You've stayed too long, Kyle said, his voice rough. The land stirs. It knows you don't belong. Mara stepped between them. They leave now. No harm done. Kale's eyes locked on Leo. He took something. Leo's hand closed around the stone in his pocket. He said nothing. Mara turned to him, her gaze sharp. After a long moment, she sighed. Go, she said. But know this, if you return with others, the Veil will not let you through again. And if you speak of us, Earth will vanish once more, deeper than before. Back on the ship, Leo sat alone in his quarters, the stone warm in his palm. He traced the symbols with his thumb. They matched the glyphs from the ancient chart. This wasn't just a key. It was an invitation or a test. Elena found him there an hour later. "What are you thinking?" "That maybe the monsters weren't on Earth," Leo said softly. "Maybe they're in us. And Earth is the only place that knows how to cure them." Elena didn't answer. She just looked out the viewport at the sleeping planet below, wondering if they were the visitors or the disease. Tension filled the Odyssey Dawn like fog. The crew moved quietly, speaking in hushed tones. Leo stayed in his quarters most of the time, studying the stone Jax had given him. The symbols on it matched patterns from the ancient chart, but they also aligned with coordinates buried in Earth's old observatory logs, coordinates that pointed to a mountain range in what was once Colorado. Nate spent hours analyzing soil and leaf samples, his face growing more serious with each passing hour. The biosphere wasn't just alive, it was aware. The plants reacted to sound. The microbes in the water adjusted to foreign cells. Earth wasn't healing. It was evolving, and it remembered everything. Elena called a meeting in the briefing room. She stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, eyes tired. "We have a choice," she said. "We can log this as an empty sector and move on. Or we can report Earth's survival to the Concord." Kyle spoke first. "If we lie, we're hiding the birthplace of humanity." "That's wrong." "But if we tell the truth," Nate countered, "the Concord will send a science fleet, then a cultural team, then maybe a security detail for protection. You know how it goes. Earth isn't ready for that. They barely trust us." Leo looked up from his notes. "They don't trust the idea of us." "Not us personally. Jax believes we've changed. Maybe showing them we have is the only way to prove it." "How?" Elena asked. "By going back," Leo said. "Not as explorers. Not as representatives. Just as people. We bring nothing. We take nothing. We listen, and we show them we're not here to own anything." Elena was silent for a long time. Then she nodded. "One last trip. But this time you stay on the ship, Nate. Kyle, you're on comms. If anything goes wrong, we pull out fast." The next descent was tense. The shuttle passed through the debris field without issue. But as they neared the landing zone, the forest below seemed darker, quieter. No birds called. The glowing moss dimmed as they approached. When they stepped out, only Jax waited for them. No Mara, no elders. "She won't see you," Jax said, his voice low. "Kale convinced the council you're a threat. They think you'll bring others." "Then why are you here?" Leo asked. "Because I still believe," Jax said, "and because I found something in the vault." He led them not to the settlement, but up a steep trail into the mountains. The air grew thin and cool. Stone steps, half swallowed by roots, led to a cave entrance carved with the same serpent symbol from Mara's pendant. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue veins of living crystal. At the center of the chamber stood a console, ancient but functional, covered in dust and moss. Jax placed his hand on it. The room hummed to life. Holograms flickered, videos, logs, schematics. One showed scientists in old-style uniforms activating the veil. Another showed cities falling dark, not from bombs, but from a wave of silence as Earth's biosphere rejected human technology. The final file was labeled, "Final Transmission, Sol Command 2151, the recording played." A man with tired eyes spoke slowly. "To any who hear this, Earth is not dead. It is sleeping. We tried to control it, to bend it, to own it. It broke us. Now it heals. Do not return, not out of fear, but out of respect. Let it be. Let it teach itself to live again. And if you ever come back, come not as masters, but as students." Leo felt tears in his eyes. This wasn't a warning about monsters. It was a plea. Suddenly, the cave entrance darkened. Kale stood there, flanked by 4 others. Their staffs glowed brighter than before. "You were told not to return," Kyle said, stepping inside. "You broke the trust." "We only wanted to understand," Elena said, standing tall. "Understanding leads to wanting," Kale shot back. "Wanting leads to taking. We've seen it before." Jack stepped between them. "They're not like the old ones." They listened to the transmission. "They saw what we are." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "Words are easy. Actions matter." Then the ground trembled. A low groan echoed through the mountain. The crystals on the walls pulsed red. Jax's face went pale. "The land is upset. It feels your fear, your anger." Outside, the wind howled. Trees bent as if pushed by invisible hands. The sky darkened, though it was midday. Mara appeared at the entrance, breathing hard.
Cal, stop.
You're making it worse. The off-worlders started this, he growled. No, Mara said firmly. We did by hiding, by fearing. Earth doesn't hate them. It tests them. And they passed. She turned to Leo and Elena. You came back without weapons. You sought truth, not power. That is rare. Cale shook his head. It's not enough. One good visitor doesn't mean the next won't bring fire. Then let us be the bridge, Leo said. Not for conquest. Not for study. Just to remember. So the galaxy knows Earth didn't die. It chose to live differently. Mara looked at Jax, then at Cale, then at the trembling walls. The red light faded to soft blue again. The wind calmed. The veil stays, she said at last. But you may return. Once a year, no more. And you will tell no one of our location. Unless the Concord proves it has truly changed. Elena nodded. We'll keep your secret. As they walked back to the shuttle, Jax handed Leo a small seed pod. Plant this where you come from. If it grows, Earth accepts your world too. Leo held it gently. It pulsed once like a heartbeat. Back on the ship, the crew watched Earth shrink below. No one spoke. They all knew the weight of what they carried. Not coordinates, not data, but a promise. And somewhere in the mountains, Cale watched the shuttle vanish into the clouds. His staff dimming, his anger quiet for now. The Odyssey Dawn hung in orbit, quiet and still as if holding its breath. Below, Earth turned slowly, wrapped in clouds and green, hidden from the rest of the galaxy by its ancient shield. On the bridge, Leo stood beside Elena, both watching the planet through the main viewport. The seed pod Jax had given him rested in Leo's pocket, warm and alive. He hadn't planted it yet. He wasn't sure where it belonged. Elena broke the silence. We have to decide what to tell them. Leo knew what she meant. The Concord expected a report. Standard procedure. Log findings, send data, move on. But this wasn't standard. This was Earth, the cradle, the grave, the secret that refused to die. If we say nothing, Leo said, we lie. If we say everything, we risk everything they've built. Nate entered the bridge holding a small tray. On it sat a single sprout, pale green and curling upward from a cup of ship-grown soil. It grew, he said simply. Overnight. No special light, no nutrients. Just water and air. Leo picked up the sprout gently. It trembled slightly in his hand as if sensing him. It's choosing, he whispered. Elena looked from the sprout to the planet below. Then we tell the truth, but not all of it. She called the crew together one last time. In the mess hall under soft lights, she laid out her plan. They would file a report stating the sector was empty, as all previous scans had shown. No anomalies, no life signs, just void. But tucked inside the encrypted personal logs, accessible only to Concord historians with level 9 clearance, they would leave a single line, repeated in old Earth languages. Here be no monsters. Only memory. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Enough to plant a seed of doubt in official records. Enough for someone someday to wonder and look again. Leo asked to stay behind. At first, Elena refused. You're part of this crew. You belong with us, but I belong here too, Leo said. Not as a scientist. Not as a visitor. As a student. Mara said Earth teaches those who listen. I want to learn. Nate clapped him on the shoulder. You'll miss ship coffee. And you'll miss real dirt under your boots, Leo replied with a small smile. In the end, Elena agreed. Not because it was safe, but because it was right. The shuttle returned to the clearing one final time. This time, the whole settlement waited, not in fear, but in quiet welcome. Mara stood at the front, Jax beside her, even Cale a few steps back, arms crossed but no longer hostile. You came to stay, Mara said. It wasn't a question. I did, Leo answered. If you'll have me, Mara studied him, then nodded. You will work. You will learn. You will not speak of the stars unless asked, and you will never try to change us. I wouldn't dream of it, Leo said. As the Odyssey Dawn prepared to leave orbit, Elena stood alone on the bridge. Kyle handed her a data chip. Final logs are sealed. The false report is filed. The truth is buried where only the patient will find it. She slipped the chip into her pocket. Good. Below, Leo stood at the edge of the forest watching the ship rise. Jax joined him silent for a moment. Then he said, Why stay? Your world is out there. My world is wherever I choose to care, Leo said. And this place, It remembers how to be human, Jack smiled. Then you'll fit right in, high above. The Odyssey Dawn vanished into the stars, carrying no coordinates, no samples. No grand discovery, only a story they would not tell, and a hope they would protect. Years passed. The Conquered moved on, forgetting the empty sector near dead coordinates. Ships came and went, mapping new worlds, fighting old wars, dreaming new dreams. But on Earth, life continued in quiet rhythm. Leo learned to read the wind, to hear the language of trees, to walk without leaving a trace. He taught the children about the stars, not as places to conquer, but as distant cousins waiting to remember. Jax grew into a leader, gentle but firm, always pushing the keepers to look beyond fear. Even Kale softened, though he never fully trusted the sky. He watched it always, as if expecting fire, but none came. One evening, long after the veil had settled into legend, Leo stood on a hill with Mara. The twin moons cast silver light over the valley. In the distance, a new grove grew, tall trees with leaves that shimmered like starlight. The seed had spread. The chart was wrong, Leo said softly. Mara shook her head. No, it was right. The monsters were never here. They were out there, in the hearts of those who forgot how to belong. Leo looked up at the stars, not with longing, but with peace. Somewhere out there, Elena sailed among them, carrying Earth's secret like a quiet prayer, and somewhere deeper, in archives no one visited, a single line waited. Here be no monsters, only memory. Earth had not been lost. It had simply chosen to wait until humanity was ready to come home, not as conquerors, but as kin. And in the end, that was enough.